four faces on a mountain, each reflecting part of what America was and what it can become. Americans harbor a special love for the impossible task. We have undertaken and completed tasks which have amazed the rest of the world. We believe in the potential of man's ability to assert himself within the world of nature. Our ingenuity and persistence have always been tempered by a deep love for the natural beauty and a respect for nature's potent forces. This respect lies deep in the tradition of the rural American, men whose lives depended upon achieving some sort of harmonious existence within the environment. In 1923, Doane Robinson, the secretary of the State Historical Society of South Dakota, had the idea of carving some kind of monument in the granite of the Black Hills. He suggested that perhaps the figures of some of the heroes of the Old West would be appropriate, and was sure that an artist of vision and imagination could work out a wonderful scheme. Robinson was supported by Senator Peter Norbeck, Congressman William Williamson, and eventually by John Boland as business manager for the project. It was a difficult, frustrating battle, but they felt this was a chance to strengthen the American dream they cherished. The artist they chose was a 42-year-old sculptor, Gutzon Borglum. Borglum had achieved some success as a sculptor, having executed a number of prize-winning works. He was a man of irrepressible spirit and self-confidence who occasionally seemed to lose sight of the practical problems surrounding the project. To Borglum, Mount Rushmore became the most important thing in the world. He understood what America wanted to say and the scale on which it had to be said. But he had to find the images that would carry this message. He proved himself equal to the task of solidifying in stone the spirit of a nation. Borglum was the catalyst and tool through which each American would be able to renew his own understanding of American ideals. He chose the faces of four men. On August the 10th, 1927, President Calvin Coolidge presented Borglum with a set of drills. Work began. The first face to emerge from the granite mountain was that of the first president of the United States, General George Washington. At Fraunces Tavern in New York, after the victory of the Revolution, General Washington bid farewell to his officers. With a heart full of love and gratitude, I now take leave of you. I most devoutly wish that your later years may be as prosperous and happy as your former ones have been glorious and honorable. Choked with emotion, he continued, I shall feel obliged if each of you will come and take me by the hand. This little address, with the mode and manner of delivering it, drew tears from many of the officers. Washington returned to his graceful mansion on the Potomac River to resume the life of a country squire. His deeply felt responsibility to the Republic was the only thing that drew him away again from Mount Vernon. nothing short of conviction that my dereliction of the chair of government would involve the country in serious disputes respecting the chief magistrate, could in any wise induce me to relinquish the determination I have formed. Washington tried to focus his country's attention on the awesome problems of internal harmony. In his farewell address to the Union, he described the potential of our young democracy. The citizens of America, placed in the most enviable condition as the sole lords and proprietors of a vast tract of continent, comprehending all the various soils and climates of the world, and abounding with all the necessaries and conveniences of life, are now, by the late satisfactory pacification, acknowledged to be possessed of absolute freedom and independency. Here they are not only surrounded with everything which can contribute to the completion of private and domestic enjoyment, but heaven has crowned all its other blessings by giving a fairer opportunity for political happiness than any other nation has ever been favored with. George Washington was the steady hand that helped the young nation redirect itself after the destruction and turmoil of the Revolution. Borglum perceived that our first president had become the yardstick by which future leaders would be measured. He chose Washington's Secretary of State, Thomas Jefferson, our third president, for the next face on Mount Rushmore. Jefferson's face was started to Washington's right, but Borglum found that the rock was unsuitable, and this false start was finally dynamited from the mountain in the summer of 1927. This setback cost time and money which the project could ill afford. Despite the constant financial difficulties, Borglum, Norbeck, and other friends of the giant undertaking held on to their vision. Funds were collected to continue work. Jefferson's face, which finally emerged on Washington's left, was probably the least recognized of the 60-foot faces. During the early stages, people occasionally mistook him for Martha Washington, but Jefferson's face was an important part of Borglum's vision. Jefferson understood the strong spirit of independence and self-reliance of the American people. His Declaration of Independence reached deeply into the ideals of all free and freedom-loving men. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new governments. A man was a man by an act of nature at the grace of God, not by the grace of his master or owner. Jefferson's philosophy was based on a belief in an intrinsic connection between all men and the land. Like Washington's Mount Vernon, Jefferson had his Monticello, where he maintained his connection with the land and the works of his own hands. Jefferson's house at Monticello and the University of Virginia are monuments to the harmony of man and nature. Like Mount Rushmore, they are natural extensions of the aspirations and dreams of one of God's creations, mankind. Jefferson, however, recognized his own failure to rid the country of the disharmony surrounding the issue of slavery. He could only lay the groundwork and hope. In his last years, he wrote, "I have sometimes asked myself whether my country is the better for my having lived at all. I do not know that it is, I have been the instrument of doing things, but they would have been done by others, some of them perhaps a little better. It was Borglum's understanding of the importance of bringing the country together and forward under this Jeffersonian vision that led him to choose the countenance of a man who, as president, held our country together through a period which nearly melted the foundations of our republic, Abraham Lincoln. When I came on the 4th day of March, 1861, through a free and constitutional election to preside in the government of the United States, the country was found at the verge of civil war. Whatever might have been the cause or whosoever the fault, one duty paramount to all others was before me, namely to maintain and preserve at once the Constitution and the integrity of the Federal Republic. Abraham Lincoln brought a new kind of wisdom born of the frontier of the rapidly expanding country. He was the epitome of this fresh approach of country wisdom. He was a hard worker, a laborer. When he campaigned for the state legislature in Illinois, he would travel from farm to farm, campaigning as he gave a hand with the daily chores. It was his view of life, a more complete understanding of what American life entailed, that allowed Lincoln to carry Jefferson's vision forward. It also gave him the strength to survive the chaos and death of the Civil War. Lincoln's face clearly reflected the scars and trials of a country torn from within. It is the face of a man who felt great pain as the country clawed at itself. Brother fought brother, people hated and hunted neighbors. It is the face of a man who felt each new pain. Fondly do we hope, fervently do we pray that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass away. But Borglum was able to capture the other, more subtle, more powerful source that transformed the face of a tired man into the face of a national leader, a man of vision. As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. This expresses my idea of democracy. Whatever differs from this, to this extent of the difference, is no democracy. Borglum would watch the light move across Lincoln's face, study the effects, and then rush immediately to the carving and direct alterations and fine work. He captured in the face that rare mixture of patience and faith, which had given Lincoln the strength to endure, to take the first step toward the harmony of man and nature by guiding the people toward a harmony with one another. This vision of democracy could only be brought within reach by the energy and drive of the American people. For the final face, Borglum chose a man of boundless energy, Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt grew from an asthmatic youth into one of the most robust men in the country. As a youth, his doctor had warned him of a heart condition and suggested that he avoid stares and excitement. Roosevelt went on to climb the Matterhorn, hunt buffalo, fight a war, safari across Africa, become president of the United States, and in general, lead the most energetic life possible. A young writer was witness to this energy and described the experience in these words. I have held through a generation my first flash of Theodore Roosevelt, a tallish yet stockily built man, physically hard and rugged, quick-speaking, forthright, a dynamo of energy given to gestures and grimaces, letting his voice run its full gamut from bass to falsetto. He seemed spiritually to be dancing in the exuberance of a deep physical joy of life. Borglum had known the president personally and had felt the impatience and drive of the man. Roosevelt refused to accept the crimes of those few rich who were exploiting the people of the United States. He said, the true welfare of the nation is indissolubly bound up with the welfare of the farmer and the wage earner, of the man who tills the soil, and of the mechanic, the handicraftsman, the laborer. Roosevelt realized that it was the laborer who was the backbone of American energy. He refused to allow economic growth to mark the end of the individual. Referring to our growing economic stature, Roosevelt warned, prosperity can only be lasting if it is based on justice. As a boy, Roosevelt saw natural history as his calling and remained active as a naturalist until his death. He was friends with many of the great conservationists of the day. Roosevelt marked perhaps a new level of consciousness in understanding Americans and their natural environment. He realized that economic exploitation was perpetuated against the land as well as the people, and that these natural resources were part of America's great heritage. He laid the cornerstone of the gateway to Yellowstone Park in April of 1903, and he said, I cannot too often repeat that the essential feature in the present management of the Yellowstone Park, as in all similar places, is its essential democracy. It is the preservation of the scenery, of the forest, of the wilderness life for the people as a whole, instead of leaving the enjoyment thereof to be confined to the very rich who can control private reserves. The determination so vivid in Roosevelt's face carried forward the visions of men like Lincoln and Jefferson. Gutzon Borglum died on March the 6th, 1941, as the monument was close to completion. He had originally intended to carve the figures from the waist up, but it was decided that this, as well as the Hall of Records, was unnecessary to the power of what is certainly one of the most dramatic statements of the aspirations and dedication of the men who made the United States of America. In his farewell address, Washington expressed the gravity of such a dedication. For according to the systems of policy the state shall adopt at this moment, they will stand or fall, and by their confirmation or lapse, it is yet to be decided whether the revolution must ultimately be considered as a blessing or a curse. A blessing or a curse, not to the present age alone, for with our fate will be the destiny of unborn millions to be involved.